Each year on the first Sunday of Lent, we hear the same story, the story of the temptation of Jesus in the desert. And depending which evangelist it is, some of the stories have a little more detail than others. They tell us that Satan tempted him 3 times with the temptation to make rocks into bread, with the temptation for power, and with the temptation to have all the world bow before him. Others, like St. Mark, are much more simple. It just tells us that Jesus was tempted. But regardless of the complexity of the story, the message of the story is the same. Jesus, like us, knew the reality of temptation. And the gospel tells us that Jesus overcame those temptations by doing 2 important things. The first was always staying rooted in God's love for him and his relationship with God. And the second was also staying rooted in the Word of God. When Satan tempts Jesus to turn rocks into bread, even though Jesus is hungry after fasting for 40 days, he says, "Man does not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of God." Jesus' knowledge of the scriptures helped him cope with the temptations the devil threw at him. And we unfortunately all know the reality of temptation too well in our lives. It's something we deal with day after day. And the season of Lent calls us to confront temptation in a new way, so that instead of caving into it, like Christ, we can overcome it. We all know without the Lord's help, we can never overcome temptation. But I think it's no mere coincidence that the gospel on the first Sunday of Lent shows us how Jesus overcame temptation, so we can do that in our lives. As we enter Lent, let's reflect and let's renew ourselves by staying rooted in our relationship with God and the love that relationship gives, and staying rooted in the guidance and the inspiration of scriptures. If that's how Jesus himself overcame temptation, then there is no better path for us to follow to overcome the power of temptation in our lives as well. Not a sermon, not a homily, something to think about.